Hi, Sophie here. Today we have Paul Barry joining us from his company SSAS Consultant to tell us a little bit about the financial service that his company provides. Thanks for joining us today, Paul. It's great to have you.
Well, thank you.
For people who may not have met you before, would you be able to tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I have worked in financial services for 30 plus years, 31 years. I had the pleasure of working for the Bank of Scotland when I first started work. I became a financial advisor in the bank and dealt with a whole range of high net worth clients over the years. Specialised in SSAS pensions and more complex pension structures, hence my specialism now into the SSAS world. So yeah.
So Paul, can you tell me about what a SSAS is?
I can. So a SSAS stands for SSAS, Small Self-Administered Scheme, and it's a pension scheme that HMRC designed for business owners many years ago for SME owners, so businesses of a certain scale. It's designed to give those business owners ability to do more than an individual to advance their business and to help their pension all at the same time.
So who would a SSAS suit?
SSAS is for someone who runs a business of a certain scale, so someone who has a business, a limited company, a limited liability partnership, who has an active trading business, who is keen to do more with that business and their pension and trying to fit the two together. And that's my job, is to try and understand where those points are. So essentially it's for people with their own business, be it a limited company or a partnership.
So can you tell us a little bit about your role with SSAS Consultant?
Yeah, so I am self-employed with SSAS Consultants. SSAS Consultants is my own business. So the focus really of what I do with that is to work one-to-one with business owners, and to be a business owner myself is a sort of natural thing to relate to other people with. The role I undertake there is really quite simple, where I engage with people such as yourself and understand your circumstances, relate that to SSAS and how it might work with you, and then guide you through the process and sort of hold your hand right through the process to make sure that the SSAS is right, we set it up, and then you start to use it effectively after that.
What would people typically use a SSAS for?
So a whole variety of things. The most typical uses I see are people who have a profitable business and they're trying to mitigate some tax in a tax efficient manner. And a SSAS is a brilliant tool for that, so it can accommodate much more contribution from a business than, say, a personal pension can. It can help people who are wanting to raise capital to assist their own business. It might be an active trading business to acquire stock or employ people, or to buy an asset, or it could be, if you're a property business, to help you buy more properties, deposits, or to do flips, or whatever that may be. It can be used to protect assets, so if you already own an asset, you can transfer that into the SSAS. A lot of cash in your business, you can transfer it into the SSAS. And the reason you might want to do that is that if there is value transfer from the business to the SSAS, then if it ends up in the SSAS, there is no risk that someone can sue you or litigate against you, and the value is protected within it. And people can use SSAS for a family trust. So if you want to cascade wealth to your family, which most people do, then SSAS is a brilliant tool for that. It can be used for a real wide variety of purposes, and that my role really is to work with business owners to understand what that might mean for them and to plug in the benefits where it's best suited.
So how does SSAS differ from pensions that people would normally be familiar with?
Yeah, that's a good question and a good point actually. Most people don't really understand the differences between different pension types. So a SSAS is what is regarded as an occupational pension scheme, which is governed by a whole set of different rules, a different regulator from a personal pension most people would be familiar with. And what that essentially means is that the SSAS has got more flexibility, more capability, and the definition of it from a user's perspective is that it's described as a member-directed pension scheme, which really means that you, as the member or the trustee, have full control of that pension. No one is telling you what you must do with it or how it will be invested or where it's to be structured, how it's structured. That is entirely down to you. And that's why people, particularly business owners, love the concept of a SSAS, because you can do what you want to do according to your objectives and circumstances, and really get to that point in a much more structured way.
So why have many people not heard of a SSAS?
I hear that every day of every working week, where people usually say to me, "Oh, it sounds too good to be true," or "Why haven't I heard of it?" And people are sort of sceptical because they don't know about something, and I totally understand that. The main reasons, or the main reason, is that SSAS is not a retail product. So people will not have seen that in a financial services office, a bank or an insurance company. Just it's not something that is typically made available to the general public because it isn't for the general public. So SSAS is specifically for small business owners. Where people should have heard of it is from their financial advisor or from their accountant. And there are reasons why, even in those circumstances, financial advisors aren't massively familiar with SSAS because it's a little bit different to what they're normally used to. And accountants should definitely know about SSAS, but to be fair to accountants, it's not really in their realm to provide what they think is financial advice. My view of SSAS is that for an accountant, there's a massive tax planning tool within it that accountants should have an awareness of, but it's not really in their realm to be talking about that sort of thing with their clients. So there is a knowledge gap there for sure. I have a job to do there to try and fill that, and it certainly is enlightening for people when they discover what a SSAS can do and they haven't heard about it. There can be a bit of frustration there, but I can keep people calm on that, but just tell them the benefits and let them access it.
So you mentioned being able to access capital from the SSAS. How would that work and how could people use that?
So SSAS has the ability for the pension to lend money to what's called the sponsoring employer, which essentially is, if it's my SSAS, it's my pension lending money to my business. And HMRC have provided a facility there that allows the SSAS to lend up to 50% of its value. So for simplicity, if you have £100,000 in your SSAS, you can lend £50,000 of that to your business, and that can be for any commercial purpose that you want that for. So it could be to buy more stock for business, to buy an asset, in property, as I've mentioned, it could be to purchase a property, it could be a deposit for a buy-to-let, anything that really would help your business to grow and to succeed. And in addition, whilst you're doing that, that gives the pensioner a return because you, in that context, are the lender from your pension and the borrower from your business. So you set the rules and returns around that. It's a fantastic tool if people understand how they can really benefit in using that.
So if people can loan 50% of the value of their SSAS to their own business, what can they do with the other 50%?
That is a common question. People get excited about the 50% of their own business and not forget, but then sort of discover that there's another 50% sitting there that they should be using or engaging. So there are a variety of things you can do with it. Principally, you can do anything you want to do with it, provided it sits or fits with HMRC regulations, which is invest really in anything that is HMRC approved. Most commonly, though, people have or will use the ability for the SSAS to lend money to a third-party business. So a very similar process to lending it to your own company, but you can lend it to somebody else's. So in the context, say, of a property business, that might mean lending it to someone who's of a like mind, who's doing another project that you can't do, but your SSAS and yourself can still benefit from that process, where you lend money to their project, you set the returns, you manage the process, the SSAS trustee will do all the work for that for you. But it's a great way to access other opportunities that you couldn't or wouldn't have the ability to do with your own SSAS.
So you talked a little bit about there being tax benefits. What would be involved with the tax benefits in a SSAS?
Loads of things. That is a huge thing. I'll cover it briefly. So primarily or principally, the SSAS is a pension. So that gives it essentially a tax-free status. HMRC allow that structure to have no tax payable within it and allowances to get money into it. So for a business, if you're making profit and want to contribute money to the SSAS, then any contribution and every contribution you make to it is tax allowable, which means that you'll save corporation tax on every pound that you pay into it. So simplicity, £100,000 is paid in, you'll save £19,000 of tax by doing that. So initially you've made a 19% return over and above what you would have done if you had the money sitting in the company. Pension then is tax-free, so any investment you make within that structure will pay no capital gains tax, corporation tax within the structure. So if you loan money to your business, as we just mentioned, or a third-party business, the return you make there will have no tax payable on it. And if you had borrowed money for your own business and were paying it back, that payment is also tax allowable back to the SSAS, which is an interesting little quirk of the structure. And then within the structure beyond that, so that the SSAS allows for essentially a long-term enduring family trust, there's a brilliant ability for the SSAS to pass wealth. You can cascade that wealth to your family in a very, very tax-efficient manner, so that in the event of one person's death, the value will cascade to the remaining people within the SSAS, which means there is no inheritance tax at all to be paid at that time, which for some people is a huge thing. And the ability to cascade that wealth is powerful for most people.
So how much can a business pay into a SSAS?
Most people are unfamiliar with this, and I mentioned accountants and financial advisors not being familiar really with SSAS and all the abilities and regulations. So most people, and professionals included, assume that the maximum you can pay into a SSAS or any pension is £40,000 per annum. That in itself, to be fair, is a decent amount of money, and from a business that's lucrative and productive to do that. However, a SSAS, very differently to other structures, allows you to pay up to £500,000 per annum, which for a business which is making a profit more than £40,000 is hugely significant. So the contribution, say you're making a profit of £200,000 a year and you wanted to pay that into the SSAS, then that contribution will go from the business into the SSAS with zero tax to pay. So immediately saving that business £38,000 in tax. And they can do that every year. And for most businesses, that is a revelation that they didn't know. For pretty much all accountants, that is breaking news, and most don't actually understand that or believe it, which is always a challenge. And I can assure you that these are HMRC rules. It's not something that I've created or someone else has thought was a great idea. So £500,000 is the annual contribution. In actual fact, you can put up to £2 million into it at one point and have the tax relief spread over up to 3 years. But that would be if you had a particular project or a particularly good year, you could do up to that value. But yes, so the ability for the SSAS to contribute or have contributions of that level is significant and is usually a bit of a ground-breaking moment for most business owners.
Are there any risks associated with a SSAS?
Yeah, another good question. So the SSAS itself by its design doesn't bring risk to the equation, if you like, because the SSAS structure is different to most pension structures that people are familiar with, whereby traditionally you would put money into a pension and that provider, let's say it was a Standard Life or Aviva or whomsoever, would take that value from you and they would seek to invest it on your behalf within their own structures. SSAS does not have that investment part as the inherent part of the design of it. So what that means is if you pay money into the SSAS, you will determine where that's invested and how it's invested. So the SSAS itself doesn't bring investment risk beyond what you choose to invest within, and that is entirely your own decision and in your own time. The structure itself has no risk associated to it, so it is an HMRC approved structure. Each SSAS is singularly and individually approved by HMRC before it exists, so it's been given a green light. Each SSAS is given its own pension scheme tax reference number, so it exists as its entity in its own right. So no, there is no risk that SSAS brings that you can't control or manage for yourself.
What are the costs involved with setting up and running a SSAS?
So the SSAS has an initial fee payable to essentially get the structure initially set up for the time it takes to consult on it and to understand the best uses and objectives for it. So that's a one-off fee, and that varies, depends on how many people are in the SSAS and what your plans are and the time taken and all sorts of other factors. And thereafter there is a charge to run the SSAS on an annual basis, and those charges are payable for the administration and trustee work that's carried out for every SSAS, and that work is typically compliance and HMRC reporting and all the sort of complex, boring bits that people really don't want to get involved with, and that's all handled on behalf of the SSAS members for the SSAS. There are ad hoc fees that will come along, so for example if you're buying a commercial property there will be fees involved in that process, as there would be anyway if you're buying a property. Or if you were taking a loan back, for example, from the SSAS, there are admin fees that will come into that process. These are not exorbitant or prohibitive fees at all, they're just part and parcel of the process of running a pension scheme.
So are all SSAS providers the same?
No, short answer. There are a variety of SSAS providers in the UK. There's probably 30, 35 SSAS providers. I've never counted them, but there are not many. SSAS as a market is quite restricted, so there's probably something like 40,000 SSASs in the UK, which is really a tiny market compared to some other pension structures. For example, SIP pension, most people have heard of SIP, has about 6-7 million SIPs in the UK, so it's a massive scale of an operation. So SSAS isn't like that. So SSAS providers tend to be more niche and work in very different ways. So SSAS has a variety of service types, ranging from practitioner to administrator to trustee, and each of those offers a varying level of service And each of those has a varying level of responsibility for the person whose SSAS that is. Our view of that as a consultancy business is, as a business owner, you really don't want to become a pension scheme owner or administrator. That's not why you started a business. So our view of it is we provide you with the highest levels of protection and service so that you engage with the SSAS and the people involved with it to do what you want to do with it, not to comply with regulation and to report to the regulator or HMRC. But there are some risks in the process if you don't understand what level of service is. We spoke about risk a little bit earlier. This isn't a risk in terms of losing money or investment risk. It's more about the risk you could embark upon if you don't know what you're doing with it, and if you don't understand what level of service the provider is giving to you. And it's a very, very misunderstood point. I'd be happy to discuss that with anybody, but I can summarise that in more detail. But we do need to be aware of the different levels of service that are available.
I think that's one thing I probably wasn't aware of, was what your service is offering is actually kind of a hands-free service, and that you would take care of your clients to make sure that they are aware of the exact rules of HMRC and can provide the guidance to make sure that sort of no rules are broken. Because I guess when rules of a SSAS are broken, HMRC, I'm sure, are very quick to chase up what's gone on, and obviously there will be tax implications there, I'm sure, for any rule breaking.
Absolutely, and that is the bit that people need to be aware of and need to understand that the service that they have embarked upon will mitigate those risks. Because I have had clients in the past who have used other services that didn't know that. If people embark upon that course of choosing the wrong service, they can change that structure. It's not terminal, it's not something that they can't alter to get to a better place. But it is important before you start that process that you understand what the service is. I often make a comparison to people that if you're familiar with property, if you own, for example, a buy-to-let property, you may engage with a letting agent to find you a tenant, but not manage a property. So in this context, it's like that to an extent, where our service is a fully managed tenant find, all documentation, all compliance, all engagement, all rent collection. That's what we do. We engage the full process to take that risk out of it for the SSAS trustee members. You could, however, use that same business just to find you a tenant, and then you have all the work and all there is to do thereafter. That's the sort of differences that can be around in the market if you're not familiar with what you're actually buying into.
I think that's a really good comparison, actually, because I think probably a lot of people that would be looking into SSAS would say, great, do I have any SSAS services nearby me? And there probably is that sort of overwhelm of information when they first find out about a SSAS. It would be very easy to jump at the first opportunity to take on a SSAS, but actually without fully investigating what services are provided by each SSAS company, you could actually find yourself doing a lot of legwork for trying to get the benefits of the SSAS.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a client recently, actually, in that sort of comparison. He had embarked upon a certain course with a provider and discovered, actually a national provider, a big provider, and discovered that they offered the very lowest level of service, but their annual charges incredibly were 4 times the charge that we would apply to offer the very highest level of service. I think that it's unpalatable, is probably a polite way of putting it. I think that's shocking. But he didn't know the difference because, well, how would you know the difference, quite frankly, unless someone engaged in that with you? But it's something really to be aware of. And my job really is to consult with you to understand what those differences are, so you really do know what you're doing before you start down that road. And it's an important point, actually, and mention it now. SSAS is not for everybody. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and it should be you turned up, you get one. That's not how it works at all. My feeling on that is that I will rather tell you not to do a SSAS than to do it if you just aren't in the place to make it work, because quite frankly, it'll cost you money and time and me, and that's not how this process works. It's not a sales process, it's a consultative advisory process, and it must be right for the people who are engaged in it.
I think that's important as a professional. If you are providing a service, you are able to see where it's going to work for someone and where it's not going to work for someone, and be able to guide them to make that decision is SSAS right for me, or actually is SSAS maybe not the perfect outcome for me, and then people can be referred on for other services that may be more appropriate for them, like a SIP, for example, might be more appropriate for some people. So it's good to have that reassurance that it's not a sales process, it's finding something that's going to work perfectly for a business and an individual.
And that's exactly it. And I have not more circumstances than that, but if that's the case, I would rather have the credibility of working with someone who believed that what they're getting was good advice, which is what they will get naturally. But even in that process, I've done that on a few occasions recently where that individual or business has figured out it's not right for them, we figured out it's not right for them, but I've still managed to find ways to make it work for other people that they know. And that can have great value and reward, even just from a karma perspective, if you like, that they've done a good turn for someone else and that'll come back at some point in time. And that works really well, and that's how I prefer to work with people. It's the best way to be.
So where do you fit into the process, Paul?
My role is to directly engage with people who have a business, who are interested in SSAS, and to relate their circumstances currently to what the SSAS might be able to do for them, and to really work out a strategy of how that is going to benefit them. Primarily to figure out if it will benefit them. It usually does, but that's, mentioned that point a second ago. And then to engage with them to set the SSAS up and to go through that process of all the boring paperwork and the engagement with the trustees, professional trustees, and then HMRC and the approval process. And then when the SSAS has been approved by HMRC, is to then take the machinery, if you like, and actually engage it in a process that then actually does things for them, as opposed to the theory of doing it. It's actually get the thing working and moving for them.
So thank you very much for joining us today, Paul. It's been really informative, and it's been great to hear a bit more about SSAS and how it can benefit business owners.
Thanks very much, I appreciate your time.
If you'd like to find out more about SSAS and how it could benefit you, there's going to be a link below this video that you can click to book a call with Paul through Calendly to find out more.